Is this the most difficult car that I've ever driven? I'm quite sure. Find out why right here, right now. Greetings petrolheads and welcome to RomRom.net, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing, and to It's a Mod world where we check different mods for different sims to see if they add to our enjoyment. What you see here is the Audi R8 Pfaff, a car that shares 50% of its parts from the GT3 LMS, but it's a sports car, hypercar, something like that. After rounds and rounds of testing, I would say that this is, if not the most difficult, one of the most difficult cars that I had to deal with, and we're gonna find out why soon enough. Remember, if you want to be informed about new videos, click subscribe and also click on the bell and become part of the ever-growing RomRom family. Something went wrong in our discussion in the team because I expected to be driving an LMP and this is clearly not an LMP, it's more a sports car, hypercar, something like that. In real life it has an automatic, but as always I'm gonna drive it with pedals and skip the automatic gear change. Looks quite 3D, but it's kinda plasticky. The dials you see here move while you're driving. We're gonna see that when I'm driving around Laguna Seca. These rear view mirrors look like the DTM mirrors. Very cool. The motor can be seen through the rear window, and there is even more motor in the motor. And while the motor also looks plasticky, let's not be too pushy here. The look is quite detailed, looks quite good. There has been quite the attention to detail by the mod maker. As you can see, the car lays very low. This will have an impact on how the car drives, but more about it later. The sound is quite detailed. Content Manager tells me it's the sound from the Lamborghini Gallardo. You'll hear the brakes, the turbo, the clutch, and many layers in the motor. This car is very unstable at the back, very oversteering. It's a very nervous car. Going on the throttle, changing gears will be cause for oversteer. While I've never driven this car, the driving feeling is similar to sports cars I've driven in the past, so I suppose it's quite realistic. The car is everywhere, and I found myself having to spend more time and energy keeping it on track than really being able to race it. It also wants to easily go into pendulum, so be careful with corrections while driving. Fitting that whole image, you'll have to be very precise with the braking. I found myself braking soon on trail braking, and even so going off track, and I cannot say I've mastered braking after hours of practice. Speaking about braking, this car locks the tires quite easily, so finding the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone of braking, is going to keep you occupied for a long while. The car also reacted quite allergic to the curbs and to any bump in the track. Don't get me started on Laguna Seca's corkscrew. I suppose the chassis is too low for its own good and for your own good. Any bump unsettles the chassis and therefore the car. Force feedback is not bad, but forgive me for not being able to concentrate too much on that. One thing I noticed was that when the tires lost contact with the track in short bursts, I could feel that, and up to a point the lateral forces on the force feedback, so a big plus for the force feedback. Let me concentrate. Yes, I foresee lots and lots of time spent on the setup for you. Of course, there are things missing in the setup of this car that you would find in racing cars, so maybe it's not gonna be lots and lots of time because there are constraints to what you can change at all. This car is a handful. Already on lap 8 I was tired because I was spending so much energy trying to keep it on track and pointing in the right direction. My hands started to hurt shortly after that for the same reason. I liked the details in the look, and while everything could have been less plasticky, the look is quite good and it helps in the immersion. For the look I give it 5 eyes out of 5. The sound is great. And if it's an original sound for this car, it earns 5 ears out of 5. As I've said repeatedly, it's by no means easy to drive, but that doesn't detract from the driving feeling. The force feedback is very good and the car feels like a sports car feels. Even the fact that you cannot set up much has less to do with the mod and more with the car it's simulating. Because of that, I give the mod 5 wheels out of 5 for the driving feeling. This car is only for experienced drivers. Anyone else may very well see the fun sucked out of him or her at a fast pace. If you're not an experienced driver, drive this car only if you fancy a challenge, and a big challenge at that. If you'd like easier mods, there's more videos sharing the joy of sim racing on our channel, so check the playlist to the left or the video to the right. Until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other at the podium.
Visit romrom.net to connect to fellow sim racers and sim racing fans.